Diolch pawb am ymuno gyda ni yn Hustings, Gogledd Cymru 2021. Thank you everyone for attending our North Wales Hustings of 2021. I'm pleased to introduce our panellists. We have three candidates tonight: Jack Morris, Alun and Deeside, Plaid Cymru; Carolyn Thomas, Regional Candidate, North Wales Labour; Gareth Davies, Bill of Clwyd, Conservative. To start, I'd like to say that candidates can contribute in English and Welsh. Audience members, if you do not speak Welsh, simultaneous translation is available when you join us on Zoom. You should see a button at the bottom of your screen that looks like a global icon. If you click on it and choose English, you'll hear all the remarks in English. For those watching on Facebook, we'll post the Zoom link so you can access the translation. So each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves, and then we'll go to questions with our question master. I'll start with you, Gareth, followed by Jack, and then Carolyn.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Good evening, everybody. Noswaith dda. My name's Gareth Davies. I'm the Welsh Conservative Senedd candidate for the Vale of Clwyd. I'm also a North Wales regional candidate. I'm a town and county councillor in Denbighshire County Council and Prestatyn Town Council. And I also work for the NHS. I work in physiotherapy and I've previously worked in mental health and learning disabilities. So that's just a short snapshot of who I am. I think I'm just under a minute, but that's me.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Jack Morris, the Plaid Cymru candidate for Alun and Deeside, and I'm also on the regional list for North Wales for Plaid Cymru. I'm honoured to be here today with you all and with my fellow candidates to be discussing matters which I feel are vitally important, especially given the current circumstances and the events of the past year. All of us at some point in our lives will need the services of the NHS and its staff, and we in Plaid Cymru believe that nurses have the right to fair pay and decent working conditions. We need plans to fill the 1,600 vacant nursing posts. We need to be working towards fair pay for nursing, and we need to be treating the nursing industry with the respect it deserves. We've made ambitious provisions for this in our manifesto, and I'm eager to share this with you all today. Thank you.
Noswaith dda, good evening everybody. So I'm Carolyn Thomas and I'm a North Wales regional list candidate for Welsh Labour. I'm a Flintshire County Councillor. I'm actually Cabinet Member for Streets in a Countryside, so that's nothing to do with health, but I am Welsh Local Government Association Deputy Spokesperson for Mental Health and Wellbeing. I'm also on two community councils, on the Havant Deg Committee, the Village Hall Committee, two community councils, and so I'm really embedded in the local community. And I have seen the inequalities that have grown because of the pandemic, and not just because of the pandemic, but also with the rollout of universal credit and the bedroom tax. So Welsh Labour are very committed to the NHS being free at point of delivery and the collective approach to healthcare, not fragmented. So thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you, candidates. Now to move on to the questions. RCN Wales has asked members to write in with their questions before this evening. We have also allocated time to take questions from the floor, so to speak. There is the questions function on the right-hand side of your screen. If you can put your questions here, we will come to these later in the event. If you can put your questions here, that will be fine. So we are also monitoring Facebook questions, so please feel free to pop a question on there if you're watching on the live stream. So just to go over a few formalities to our audience, if you are going to ask questions using the question function, please make sure that they are appropriate and do not direct questions at just one candidate, as we want all the candidates to have an opportunity to speak and respond. So each candidate has 2 minutes to answer the question. I will approach a candidate to answer the question, so please wait until you're asked to provide an answer. I will also let the candidates know that when your 2 minutes is up, your time will be up, and I will stick to time. So to begin then, our question master is Nick Unwin, and thank you, Nick, for helping us facilitate tonight. So the questions will be read out by Nick at the beginning and going forward.
Okay, so our first question comes back to the UK government's recommendation to the pay review body that nursing staff in England covered by Agenda for Change should receive a 1% pay rise. How would your party ensure nursing staff in Wales receive the fair and meaningful pay rise that they deserve?
So I'm going to ask Carolyn to respond to this first question, please, to begin with.
Okay, well, 1% really isn't acceptable. It's a pay cut. And independent pay review bodies were set up to negotiate pay and arbitrate. And I know that a 2.5% was actually put forward by the UK. And whatever the outcome, I know that Welsh Labour will take that forward as that commitment from Vaughan Gethin as the Minister.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. Can I go to Gareth next, please, for his response?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Nick, for introducing the question. Let's not forget that health pay in Wales is a devolved issue to the Welsh Labour government, who have full responsibility over the way that the NHS is funded and the way it sets its pay scales. They've received an extra 5.85 billion from the UK government during COVID-19, and they've also received funding increases through Barnett consequentials and other boosts in funding pre and during the pandemic. It's a fully devolved matter for which Welsh Labour have full responsibility. So essentially, it's up to the Welsh government to determine these scales. A Welsh Conservative government would implement the full recommendations of the NHS pay review body as an absolute minimum, and we want to implement a train, recruit and retain policy, along with a minimum salary of £10 per hour for care staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Jack, ready for your response, please?
Thank you. First of all, I'd start by saying that the 1% pay increase is a slap in the face of the events of the past year and long before that. Over the past sort of 10 years, we've seen a real scale decrease of wages of almost 12%, and 1% is not good enough. We've already seen in Scotland that they're offering an increase of 4%, and we should be at least matching that. As my two fellow candidates have just pointed out, the Labour government is already in power in Cardiff, so they could implement more if they want, but then we've got a Conservative government in London who are only offering 1%, so neither option seems good enough, I don't think. So yes, we should be at least matching the 4% that's being offered in Scotland. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. You're all spot on with your timings. Nick, are we ready for the next questions to be read out?
Yes, we are. Second question is, do you support extending Section 25B of the Nurse Staffing Levels Wales Act 2016 to inpatient mental health wards and to community nursing?
Okay, Gareth, I'd like you to respond initially for this one, please.
Thanks, Nick, and thank you, Chair, again. In terms of mental health, we want to see mental health being on level footing with physical health, as you know, it's more of a debated subject. Mental health, 200 to 300 deaths in Wales are due to suicide, unfortunately. So you know, it's really an issue that we need to be talking about on a national level to raise awareness and to bring about a better package of care for mental health, and so we can really bring it into parity with physical health. As mentioned, there will be more details in the up and coming manifesto, but to put in short that the Welsh Conservatives are committed to seeing mental health being on parity with physical health issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gareth. Jack, I'd like to go to you next, please.
Yes, the question was on extending 25B, and Plaid Cymru will extend that. And that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. That's short and very succinct. Thank you. Carolyn, can we start with you for your answer, please?
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't hear about the Act. Was the Act to looking at the 2016 Act addressing nursing levels?
Nick, could you just mind rephrasing the question, please?
Yes, yeah, that's right. It was about the extension
nursing,
of the
protection and staffing of nursing levels. I think it's really important. When it was introduced, it was the start, and Wales were the first government in Europe to introduce this, working with the RCN. And it's really important that we have the staffing levels right. It's not just that's all part of it, of the well-being, and it's the start, and I think we do need to look at introducing it now into other areas, so I would fully support it.
Thank you, Caroline. Nick, may we have the next question, please?
Yep, absolutely. So the next one is from a nurse who's nearing retirement, who asks, can you name 3 things that your party would do to promote me to stay employed in the NHS?
Okay, I'd like Jack to start with the first response, please.
Yeah, thank you. So 3 things we would do. We want to increase nursing levels. We want to employ 4,000 new nurses. That will help with the overstretching of nurses. We also want to ensure nursing bursaries for students. They're enough for them to live on so that they can succeed in their training. As discussed, we want to offer the pay increase. This will give people more of a chance to invest in their own private pensions and will allow them to retire when it comes to it. We also want to offer career pathways that will offer promotion and give nurses more opportunities in their careers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like Carolyn, please, to respond.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we want to improve the terms and conditions of nurses. The staffing levels was very important, but we also need to recruit more nurses, as was mentioned earlier. I don't know if this will follow up, but Welsh Labour are looking to recruit 12,000 more nurses, doctors, allied staff and psychiatrists. We also have the bursary in Wales as well, which doesn't exist anymore in England. So I think we need to take the pressure off the existing nurse workforce, recruit more and make that environment better for them as well. And also making sure that there's the mental health pathways and better communication, so that there are issues, there's direct pathways to occupational health as well to improve that, so just to make it a better working environment as well for our nurses.
Thank you, Carolyn. Gareth, would you like to respond now, please?
Thanks, Sandra. The 3-word answer is retain, recruit and train. So it's recruiting more nurses, as mentioned. We would be committed to delivering a nurse apprenticeship degree, which is sort of an earn while you learn. So it's sort of giving nurses the opportunity to train on the job, which used to be the case many years ago, up until the 80s or 90s. We had nursing schools, and it was more of a sort of a vocational education rather than perhaps going to university and sort of maybe getting into debt and all sorts, and so it's given them an opportunity to learn on the job and earn as they're doing it, and obviously recruiting more nurses, keeping them in the profession, and also retaining them as well, because nurses are vitally important to the daily functions of the NHS and all health services. Day in, day out, and as are all frontline staff, and as I started, it's recruiting, retaining, and training.
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you. So, question master, are we ready for our next question, please? Sorry, Nick, are you on mute?
Sorry, I was on mute. I am no longer on mute. So we've had a few questions coming in about the differences between health and social care. How would your parties support health and social care to work better together and address the funding inequalities between health and social care?
Okay, did you all hear that? Because I didn't hear you very well, Nick. Did our panelists hear all that? Did you hear the question okay?
I'm seeing shaking heads.
Could you just repeat it for clarity, Nick?
Yes, I was struggling to hear you, Nick. Sorry. Sorry, just in case anybody else hadn't heard as well.
Yeah, so we've had a few questions coming about the funding, the differences between health and social care. How would your party support health and social care to work better together and and address the funding inequalities between them?
Right, I would like Carolyn to begin with the first response, please.
Okay. Well, the jobs that both do are so important. That's been really shown in the pandemic. The importance of care workers as well, and the inequalities of the care workers. When I used to be a part-time postwoman up to 2 years ago, and I saw a friend of mine sleeping in her car. I knew she was a care worker, and she was having to cover a really long shift, but it wasn't worth her driving home and the mileage. And I was just appalled by it. It was incredible. I think we need to make sure that we have decent pay terms and conditions for care workers under the new framework, and have career pathways then into nursing as well, and close that gap between care workers and nurses. And we need to have more of an integrated system between them both. I know as a county councillor that we work very closely with the Welsh Government, the Public Health Service, the Public Health Board as well, with the care workers, but we really do need to close that gap with equal terms and conditions, and look at that pay structure and the pathways through. We really need to lift that pay gap between them.
Thank you, Carolyn. Next, I'd like to go to Gareth, please.
Thanks again, Chair. Yes, I mean, in social care, I think I read before that 9% of social care posts lay vacant, with those being filled by agency staff, or ones that ultimately end up costing the local authorities more money in agency fees. So in terms of what the Welsh Conservatives are committed to, is to boosting the pay of care workers in Wales in recognition of the hard work and efforts they make on a daily basis. I'm working with the sector, like nursing, to recruit, retain, and train workers in the social care system, and it's worth remembering as well that local authority funding from the Welsh Government in North Wales authorities has suffered in some ways, because the Labour government in Cardiff, or where authorities in the south of the country are having increases to their local funding settlement. Councils like Denbighshire, Flintshire, Conway have seen either their budgets stagnate or even decrease, leaving all local authorities in a position where, you know, you're thinking, well, do we raise council tax to fund these, or ultimately do things have to suffer? And, you know, and I think we need a better funding settlement from South Wales in order to fulfil the needs of the sector.
Thank you very much. Jack, ready for your response, please?
Okay, thank you. So we in Plaid Cymru want to, first of all, set up a commission that will look at creating a national health and care service. So we want to bring our care workers into the NHS with the same pay, same terms and conditions, so that the value of their work is recognised. Care work is as important as nursing work, as doctor work, medicine work. It all needs to be treated equally. We also want to introduce a mandatory £10 per hour minimum wage for all care workers. We'll put this on to those that employ the care workers. We also want to reform the care assessment process so that it's focusing on personal needs and not just whether it's healthcare or social care. We want to be providing the necessary care that our patients need. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Nick, are we ready for the next question, please?
Yes, we are. So staff working in the independent sector, such as in independent hospices, which are charities, do not have pay or terms and conditions that match the NHS. A pay rise for NHS staff would be welcomed, but this does not cover all nurses. What would you do to change this and ensure equality of pay, terms and conditions?
Gareth, I'd like you to start with your response to this, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think, you know, in terms of private, private companies, it's ultimately up to the private employer to determine their their pay scales and salaries that they pay health and social care workers. And it's all, as I say, it's ultimately up to them. That they're not sort of under public scrutiny as such as the NHS or local authorities. But from a sort of a personal point of view, I'd like to see some recognition from private companies to invest in their staff and so that they're rewarded as much as everyone else.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to go to Jack, please.
Thank you. As I said in my last answer, sorry, not question, we would be putting the onus on those that employ and that those that deliver care to ensure a mandatory minimum wage for care workers. I think government would then have a responsibility to encourage those in the independent sector to deliver on pay scales and terms and conditions for all workers. There shouldn't really be a disparity, and I think government should be encouraging independent sector to bridge that gap. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Carolyn?
Thank you. So Welsh Labour will ensure that the NHS continues to focus on end-of-life care and will commit to review patient pathway planning and hospice funding. And I agree with what Jack said as well, that it's important to ensure that private providers make sure that they also, carry on with their employment rights as well and terms and conditions. I think we do need to align the pay grades as well between staff employed within, like, say, local authorities, OTs within local authorities, and within hospitals as well would be really, personally, I think that's really important to make sure that it's all in line within the private sector, public authority staff, and within the NHS hospitals. Going back to what Gareth said as well, and I think this would be great that it was fully funded as well, and going back to any pay deals negotiated, they should be fully funded by the UK government because they are the ones that have the purse at the end of the day. there's a certain amount of money that's devolved, and if it's not covered by the UK government, it then impacts on public service funding. There's only so much revenue funding to go around. So if you fully fund the NHS, then that means that there could be cuts to public services and other areas. So any pay deals, whether it's for the public sector or for NHS staff, need to be fully funded at the source by the UK government. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Question Master, are we ready for the next question, please?
Yes. So from a member of the Facebook audience, this question is, how would your party catch up with the high backlog and demand on healthcare services in Wales?
Thank you, Nick. I'd like Jack to start with his response, please.
Thank you. So obviously, due to COVID, we've seen massive backlog of services that need to be provided. Only today, I was taking my nan to get her legs bound up because she's been suffering for a year. So I'm all too aware of the problems, and they existed long before COVID. I think the importance is on recruiting more staff. So we want 4,000 new nurses, 1,000 new doctors, and 4,000 allied health professionals. This will allow us to deliver more care. We also want to see investment in our facilities. So for example, in the north, we want to see the health board split up into northeast, northwest. This will allow us to deliver more care and better care. And that's what our constituents and our patients deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to go to Carolyn, please.
Thank you. Well, Welsh Labour are looking to build a new medical school here in North Wales, in Bangor, which would be fantastic. And I know we need to address the pay terms and conditions to ensure that nurses are valued right and create the right environment so that we retain our existing workforce, and also ensure that the community is right for them to stay here in Wales. We need to put in place a national workforce strategy to recruit and retrain more nurses. Sorry, my dog's just been sick in the background. Sorry, I hope you can't hear. It's okay. Very off-putting. And we're looking to increase training funding by 8%. So we've had 12% growth in the workforce in the last 5 years, which is fantastic, and we need to continue with that. And as I said earlier, Welsh Government provides bursaries for training for nurses, which makes a huge difference. I know it's not enough, it is hard, but it does make a difference. And I know two young people that are going into that because of that incentive. It does help. And so we're looking at also building community health and wellbeing centres closer to the public as well, which is a good way of integrating again, bringing nurses, GPs, health provision, social prescribing as well, all together, which make a difference. So it's a case of building back, recruiting more, retaining, and training to really, get more staff there on the front line and improve conditions for people as well, and get that pay rise in place.
Thank you, Karen. Next, I'd like to go to Gareth for his response, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I hope your dog's okay, Carolyn. Obviously, COVID-19, it's obviously had its impact on every fabric of society, and healthcare is certainly up there with one of those that's the most affected. You've seen waiting lists increase in every sector of health, but to note as well that COVID-19 has also exacerbated many long-standing issues in the NHS, with 1 in 5 people currently on a waiting list targets that haven't been met since 2008 under Welsh Labour government. So it's been a long-standing issue that's been around for a long time, and the Welsh Conservatives are committed to, as I mentioned before, is recruiting, training and retaining the nurses and frontline health workers that we that we have in our NHS to combat the backlog, and to catch up on all the crucial healthcare treatments that are currently being awaited by many in North Wales and across the country.
Thank you, Gareth. Okay, thank you. Nick, are we ready for the next question, please?
Yes, we are. Next one up is asking another one about the pandemic, talking about how it's had a dreadful effect, obviously, on the health and well-being of staff in healthcare. How would your parties ensure that frontline staff are supported going forward?
I'd like to ask Carolyn to begin with this one, please.
Okay, so Welsh Labour have now a Minister for Mental Health and Wellbeing, which is making a huge difference. So I've been deputy spokesperson for WLGF over the last 6 months and seeing the work that she started to do and put in place just for the next Welsh Government, which is really important. And they've made it a priority and ring-fence mental health care funding. So, so Welsh Labour Government expanded mental health support for frontline healthcare staff during the pandemic, and I think there needs to be a better communication and respect for the person within their service area to enable them to recuperate and deal with what they're dealing with, and again a direct line to occupational health. I think sometimes I hear from friends, colleagues within the health service about just needs to be better communication among staff and the layers and the bureaucracy, just so that they've got help there, really.
Thank you, Carolyn. Next, I'd like to go to Gareth, please.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's something that you know, it's very important to look after the welfare of staff, and I think, you know, I also read something before. I think it's only 29% of workers have completed their mandatory training, which is probably you know, a big indicator that you know, that most or all of their time is committed to their actual job on the front line and doing the things that they do day in, day out. You know, from a personal point of view, I think that staff need to have that time to you know, if people have specialities and such, is to take time to have free time to explore special interests, things that interest them in their professions, in order to gain that that sort of satisfaction out of their job and what they're essentially trained to do. And it's also using the services that are available to them and the resources, you know, sort of occupational health, taking you know, taking advantage of some of the in-work support that's available. You know, this is just from a personal perspective. You know, as I've used them in the past in my experience of working in the NHS. You know, and obviously, you know, and imagine they've been quite busy over the last 12 months or so in dealing with this. But yes, you know, sort of take time to sort of embark on special interests, and also to take time to sort of recoup from the daily stresses of the job, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And finally, for this question, I'd like Jack to give his response, please.
Thank you. I work in retail, and I have done since before the pandemic, and the effect of the pandemic on my fellow workers in retail has been horrendous. So I can only imagine the effect it's had on our healthcare services. It's just horrendous. We in Plaid Cymru want to ensure that anyone affected has access to the counselling services they need and the mental health services they need. The issue with that, though, is that our mental health service is underfunded. So we want people to use it, but we're not funding it. It affects mental health issues, affect 25% of us. No doubt over this past year that will have increased, but the budget is only 11%. That needs to increase. We want to provide better services for everyone, and obviously then workers within the NHS will be able to access that. Expanding CBT. I also, on the side, I do some work with DBT, and it's great to see that the NHS are investing in that. And I think to see that spread across the NHS in England, Scotland and Wales will be great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jack. Right, can we go to our next question, please, Nick?
Next question. So we've talked a little bit about retention already, of course, but, and this is another one from Facebook. How would your party retain experienced staff members and ensure that their experience is not lost when they leave the profession?
I'd like Gareth to kick off with this one, please.
Thank you, Sandra, and thanks, Nick. I think in terms of retraining staff and retaining them is important, and I think we've seen many examples of that through the COVID-19 pandemic with the vaccinations and staff who may have recently retired being sort of re-recruited in a way to undertake the vaccine programme, and also in cases with the testing system as well. So perhaps something like that in the future is is something to go forward with. It's sort of keeping the interest there for nurses to stay in the profession, and also to allow a route back into nursing if that's something they want to go back into, if they go to pursue another career or another interest and want to come back to their trade, if you like. So I think we've got to keep the door open and offer opportunities there to come back in, and ultimately, it helps staffing numbers and those on the front line, as like we alluded to before with waiting times and for vital health treatments. Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth. I'd like to go to Jack next, please.
Thank you. Firstly, we will create an NHS nursing retention strategy. We'll work with NHS trusts across the country to try and slow and halt the exodus of nursing staff. I think, as I've already said, if we increase the numbers of nursing staff, we will increase the quality of the workplace, so people will be less likely to want to leave. I'm sure we've all done jobs where the pressure is on, we don't want to work there, so we'll leave or try to leave. And I think if we make the environment better to work in, people will want to stay. We also want to see the development of career pathways. This will allow people more opportunities to specialise in, for example, older people care, infection prevention and dementia care. This will give people, nursing staff, an opportunity to develop their skills and move into different sectors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Carolyn next, please.
Okay, thank you. So I think, well, through the pandemic, it's shown how much nurses are valued. It's really put them on the front line, hasn't it? And in the spotlight. So I think perhaps making them feel valued and involving them with any decision making as well. Sort of drawing on the experience of a nurse is, really, really important when we're looking at what we can do to improve aspects as well, and using their experience to train as well, new workforce coming up. As we said earlier, I think by taking the pressure off the workforce by recruiting more as well will make a big difference, and getting, making sure that they're well paid as well, good terms and conditions. Keep going back to that, but it does make such a difference as well. We need to retain them here in Wales as well. Beautiful North Wales, it's a fantastic place, and make sure that we've got good public transport access to our wonderful town centres, historic town centres as well, and make sure they're revived so that there's good downtime as well for people when they finish work, and you know, something to stay for here in Wales.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Can we go to our next question now, please, Nick?
If I can ever unmute myself, yes. So we've had quite a few questions coming in on investing in learning disabilities and mental health, learning disability services and mental health services. What commitment can you give to fund more nurse consultant roles in these areas?
Thank you, Nick. I'd like to begin with Jack, please.
Thank you. As I said in my last question, I think development of staff is vital. We learn so much when we're just starting off, and that knowledge that we gain as we go along in life, I think is vital to pass on. And I think offering people the pathway to move into a consultant role, I think is very important, because they're coming with a wealth of knowledge from their background. And as we invest more in staff, we also want to invest in that development and training. So we will be investing in consultant roles as well as entry-level nursing roles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. And next, I'd like to go to Carolyn.
I think we could develop our nursing staff more, so we can train them and develop. Well, we need to make sure they've got training. I'm sure I suppose with the pandemic, a lot of the training has been halted as well, but we need to make sure that there's a good pathway so that they can train and develop, and also develop the specialist practitioner qualifications as well, you know, to do more of that, which would be, you know, really good. So there's more of a front-facing role out there, as well as, you know, especially in the community, such as our district nurses. That would be really good, so they could take on more of that role.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. And Gareth, could we have your response, please?
Thank you, Sandra. I'm not too sure really on the specifics of the nurse consultant role in itself, so I can't give any details of the specifics of that role. But from a general sense, we want to bring mental health into parity with physical health and provide all the resources that needs. So, you know, if it's on parity with the pathways and the scope of a nursing career in general nursing, then I can't see why it couldn't be achievable as well in the mental health sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth. So, Nick, are we ready for the next question, please?
Yes. So the next one goes, our medical colleagues have rightly negotiated protected time to undertake continuing professional development. What is your party's view on extending this to the nursing family?
Okay, thank you, Nick. I'd like to begin with Carolyn, if I may.
Thanks. This kind of goes back to the last question, doesn't it? And I totally support this. This is really important going forwards in all areas of nursing to develop them and move forward. I think it is the way forward, really, to make sure that people get the health provision that they need. But you know, as we, you know, we're trying to recruit more doctors, but really nurses with the proper career development could take on more of that role. Definitely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn. Next, I'd like to go to Gareth.
Thank you, Sandra. Yes, it almost echoes what Carolyn mentioned. Really, it's giving nurses and professionals the right amount of time in order to pursue the special interests and to continue their professional development. I think it's very important. You know, there's so many nurses in the NHS and areas who specialise in specific areas, you know, whether it be cardiovascular, you know, renal, or you name it. There's a nurse who specialises in it, and I think we need that protected time in order for staff to sort of polish up their skills and in order to provide the best care possible.
Okay, thank you very much. And Jack, over to you, please.
Thank you. I think it's vitally important that we provide time and money for continuing professional development. I think everyone in every role in the NHS and beyond deserves the opportunity and the chance to develop to their full potential. If they want to aim for something, we should be actively encouraging that. And I think if we recruit the staff we want to recruit, that will give people the time and the energy, because it's exhausting working in the NHS, to actually pursue that development that they want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. And Nick, can we go to the next question, please?
Yes. So the next one comes back to a little bit to the question about severe mental health services and learning disabilities, but asking slightly more generally than the narrow nurse consultant question. While mental health and well-being is on everyone's agenda, those with severe mental health illness and those with profound learning disabilities have become a forgotten and neglected group. What commitment can you give to fund more? Well, no, we're missing the nurse consultant part because we've covered that already. But what commitment can you give to fund to ensure that people with learning disabilities and severe mental illness are supported?
Thank you, Nick. I would like to begin with Gareth, please, for the next question.
Thank you, Sandra and Nick, and thank you very much for the question. I think it goes back to my answer before, really, is that we want to see mental health and learning disabilities on par with physical health. So in terms of resources and funding into that, we want to see some parity, and the Welsh Conservatives are committed to ensuring that if we were able to form a government after May.
Okay, thank you, Gareth. And next, I'd like to go to Jack, please.
Thank you. I think it's unacceptable that any part of care has become neglected or forgotten. That's not acceptable. Everyone needs help at some point, and we should be providing that help. Plaid Cymru have identified certain areas, such as neonatal care and end-of-life care, which need specific strategic long-term planning to ensure that they aren't forgotten. This will then ensure they have the funding and the staffing to allow us to provide the appropriate care when needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. And Carolyn, please, your response.
Okay, thank you. Well, everybody's different, aren't they? I think that 25% of the population are classed as neurodiverse. So we need to have a person-centered approach, make the best services from different areas for that person going forward. And I think that is the commitment that I know Mark Drakeford talks about. He's always saying about that. It's about the person, that person-centered approach, making sure that there's a wide range of services available to them that's needed. And I know that young people with learning difficulties have been severely affected by the pandemic, not being able to attend maybe the special needs schools and the day services, etc. So it has been really, really hard for them. And moving forward out of the pandemic, we need to make sure that it recovers in a person-centered approach, because it's going to be difficult at first, but it's really important. I mean, I know some of the older people in my community, especially those that are alone and haven't got family, have become very isolated, and it's really sad. So I've, making sure I target those people and make sure that if they haven't got any family, that somebody is going to see them, and looking to make sure they've got services, whether it's making sure they've got the local bus service still going, that they've got food, but it's all about that individual person, whatever their needs going forward.
Thank you, Carolyn. Are we ready for the next question, please, Quizmaster?
Yes. How do you think healthcare services can be supported to deliver care at home, and particularly in rural areas?
Thank you, Nick. I'd like to start with Jack, please.
Thank you. At-home care services are vitally important. My Nan, who I mentioned earlier with her leg needing bounding, she's been having visits from the district nurses. So I know that that's important. I lost my brother-in-law last week. He received at-home hospice end-of-life care. So I've seen only too well how important at-home services is. And I think the more we centralise care services, we need to be ensuring we have that contact and the ability for people to access those care services. So we need to ensure public transport links. We need to ensure that the staff that we're recruiting, we are covering the ability for them to travel out to patients and deliver that care to their faces. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And next, I'd like to go to Carolyn.
Okay, I think community nursing and being able to look after somebody in their own home is really important. I think people recover better in their own home if they're able to. It makes such a huge difference. So, so I know Welsh Labour have made investment through the ICF funding, which has been used to create a community resource team of nurses, physiotherapists and health, providing wraparound support for people in the community, along with social services, which provides social work at home as well. And then there are daily multidisciplinary team meetings about the individuals and updates about their personal health and well-being. You know, I know a gentleman in my village, and he's in his 90s. He had a fracture and he's also suffering from cancer, and he had to go to hospital. Wasn't sure whether they could operate because he also had a health condition. Had the operation, made it through, fantastic. Went into a nursing home and wasn't very happy there. He fell. He actually dented the wall. Ended up back in hospital. Unhappy, not moving. We managed to get him back home with a wheelchair and a Zimmer frame. And last summer, during the pandemic, he sat out on his front porch and saw people walking past, and they started stopping and waving at him. Then they were sitting in the garden talking to him. And it's amazing the difference it made. And now I see him, he's out walking up the lane with his frame, and some days with his walking stick, and he's recovered from that. He's got prostate cancer, sorry, which may, you know, cause the break. And he's there, and because people know him in the community, they've seen him, he's got those community connections and ties, and they look out for him. He doesn't even need any care at home now. He dresses himself, feeds himself. People look after him that know him. It's fantastic, the difference of, you know, being at home and having that care of people coming out and just enabling him to move forward. Sorry, I've gone over.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you. And we're now ready for Gareth's response, please.
Thank you, Sandra. I think care at home is vital. I think it's really important. It's you know, it's receiving care in a setting that's where they're comfortable, where they're safe, where they're at home, and it also has its benefits from an operational level, as it keeps the pressure off acute hospitals and community as well. So I think it's you know, as Carolyn mentioned, it's that creating that holistic package at home. If somebody needs the physiotherapy, there should be that continuation of services from the acute settings and community hospitals. So yeah, absolutely, it's very important, and we're committed to seeing that you know, that we're recruiting more nurses to undertake the pressures of home care as a as a wider thing to bring in there. But absolutely, it's a crucial service that many people rely on.
Great, thank you all. And can we go to the next question, please, Nick?
Yes, so this is a nice, short, snappy one. If you were elected, what would your top priority for nursing be?
Right, for this, I'd like to start with Carolyn, please.
Is it one answer? Okay. Fair pay and conditions and good pathways with training available to them to progress. Can I add more?
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's about having the right working environment, respect, fair paying conditions, making sure that it's attractive, that they're well thought of, and making sure that it's a job that people want to go into with the bursaries, with employing more people, and making sure that they're valued as well, which they need to be. We value them, don't we, as users of the NHS service, but they need to be valued by the employers as well.
Thank you, Carolyn. And next, I'd like Gareth to respond, please.
Thank you, Sandra. If lucky to be elected in May, I would be committed to seeing nurses being happy in their roles. I'd like to see nurses being proud of the jobs they have in a well-paid and secure environment where where they can prosper in their careers. Bringing down waiting times, relieving the pressure of frontline staff by recruiting more nurses, more colleagues, not about recruiting more middle management or bureaucrats or more directors in the health board, frontline workers that make a difference to people's lives every single day. And I think nurses play a vital role in that, and I'd be committed to seeing that picture being promoted if I was lucky enough to be elected in May. Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth. And can we have your response, please, Jack?
Yes. I think for me, the number one priority would be investment. We need to see investment in training, in bursaries, in school trainings. We need investment in our hospitals, investment in our health boards, investment in every care sector. We need investment in wages. I think that is the key. What my two fellow candidates have just listed, that's all great. And I'd love to see nurses being happy and staying on in role. But I think all of that comes down to the money. We need to be putting money into our NHS. It's been underfunded for too long. And we need to put that money in, see it used properly, and then we'll reap the benefits. Thank you.
Thank you all. And Nick, may we have the next question, please?
So the next question goes, the role of the nurse is highly skilled, compassionate, and an amazing career. How would your party encourage more people to become a nurse in all 4 fields of nursing and support nursing students?
Excellent question, thank you. May we begin with Gareth, please?
Thank you, Sandra, and I agree. It's a brilliant question. And I think it's making nursing accessible. The Welsh Conservatives are committed to delivering a nurse apprenticeship degree, which will take in, maybe take away some of the formalities of a conventional degree, make it more accessible. I mean, a lot of what I've heard from HCAs who want to become nurses is that they come to band 3 or 4 level and they reach a glass ceiling where they can't seem to go any higher without having to leave their job and having to go to a degree. And I think that's where we can bring in that apprenticeship, is to also bring in nurses, but also recruit HCAs into nursing who want to get up the career ladder, who want a career in nursing, make it more attractive. You know, let them spread their wings and go into professions that they want to go into. You know, whether it be mental health, learning disabilities, general nursing. You know, make it all accessible, give them the options, and provide a sort of a holistic education in the nursing apprenticeship in order for them to see the pros and cons of all streams of nursing. And I think that's vitally important into making the sector interesting, and to ultimately attract more nurses into the profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth. And next I'd like to go to Jack, please.
Thank you. I think it ties into my last answer about investment. If we see headlines of 1% increases, if we see headlines of mass exoduses of staff, why we're not encouraging people to want to work in the NHS? And I think if we were spending that money on bursaries, helping people into the career path that they would choose in the NHS, and then recruiting more staff, we would then lessen that burden. So more people would stay in the NHS, stay working in the NHS. The publicity surrounding the NHS will be better because the care provided is exemplary, but we don't hear about that, we hear the negatives. And I think if we were hearing more of the positives, people might look at it more and think, yes, that's a career that we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And Carolyn, can we have your response, please?
Yes, thank you. Well, as I said earlier, over the last 5 years, we've had a 12% increase in medical staff, which is fantastic. So we must be doing something right. And my niece has just made a career move. She worked as an administrator in a school. She's 26. And she's told me that she's going to go for a career in nursing. So she's going to start training as a nurse, which is fantastic. She sees it as a career path as well. You know, she's an administrator, but she sees it as something that is fulfilling and rewarding to step into, and feels that, you know, it's something she can get something back out of as well, you know, and a career path going forward. Again, it's about, well, we're looking at making sure there are bursaries as well. I think that also helped with her decision because she's got a little boy. So, and she'll probably need help as well, you know, from her parents. But, you know, having that bursary does make a difference. And like I said, we're looking to train 12,000 more nurses and doctors, psychologists. So it's a wide range of health professionals. And it's about making sure that there are clear pathways, encouragement as well to help people going through it, maybe with HR, helping nurses and making sure that they're developed properly, you know, through. And looking also to develop so that they've got the specialist practitioner qualification as well, so that they can go forward and into other areas. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And may we have the next question, please, Nick?
Yes. Next up, we have, how would your party ensure that people can access services in Welsh as easily as they can in English?
Thank you. Excellent question again. Can we start with Jack, please?
Lost my mouse there. Yes. So I think, unfortunately, I don't speak Welsh. I'm still trying to learn, and I'm just a shocking language learner, clearly. But I don't think we can overstate the importance of providing services in Welsh. We've got an ageing population, dementia rates are on the rise, and I think that's just one key area where we have got to offer care in Welsh. Yes, so we want to invest in Welsh courses for those already working in the NHS to offer them the chance to either learn Welsh or develop their skills in Welsh, and ensure that we are offering Welsh across the spectrum, across the country, from all levels of healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And next I'd like Carolyn to respond, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you know, I think it really is important. I'm trying to learn Welsh as well, but it's a long process. I spent 2 years in Italy in my early 20s, so I still parlo Italiano un po', remember it, but it's about that immersion as well, I think, into the language, which is better. You know, teachers were offered to go on courses where they spend a few weeks actually learning and studying through the medium of Welsh, which I think, what a fantastic idea. Wouldn't that be great to offer that to nurses as well, to our healthcare professionals, where they can go and just be surrounded by Welsh, and then you actually absorb some of it as well, and then at the same time. That's not something that's a Welsh Labour policy, but that's something that I quite like the idea of. So, but I know the Welsh Labour policy is to have a million Welsh speakers by 2050. So, you know, and it's something that's really, really important. We have, the policies regarding using the Welsh language as well. So, and as a local authority, people that speak Welsh wear badges saying, that they speak Welsh, and to encourage people to use the Welsh language first. It's about confidence, isn't it? And my children started learning Welsh at school, and I say, speak Welsh, but it's like, oh no, they're scared of getting it wrong. But we need to promote that, giving it a go, giving it a try. So yes, it's not, so it is used.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn. And going over to Gareth for your response, please.
Thank you, Sandra. We have the Welsh Language Act of 1993, which sort of puts into law that any person in Wales has the right to be addressed in the Welsh language, or even indeed the English language. So I think it's about the accessibility. I think people need to have that option, and I know there's internal policies in the NHS, and imagine possibly in the RCN as well, which makes the service available to people if they wish to access it. And particularly in some areas. I mean, I live in Prestatyn, where Welsh language, it isn't spoken widely. But then if you go over to Gwynedd, Bangor, Carnarvon, and other more rural parts, it's very Welsh speaking. So, I think we need to have that, those sort of services where they need to be had, but also across the area, and promote people to learn Welsh. Encourage people to learn as much as they can in line with English, because it's a vital skill to have. I mean, I can speak a degree of Welsh, but I'm not confident at all to be fluent. I know a lot of words, but I struggle to put them into sentences. That's my main issue. But I'm quite good at translating one word into Welsh and vice versa. But I think it's just education. I think it's there is commitments to further to educate people more on give them Welsh language skills. So I think the future is bright for the Welsh language. The Welsh Conservatives are committed to seeing that happen as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. There we are, spot on. And do we have any more questions, Nick? We have time for our final question.
We have one more. There's been quite a few coming in on pay all evening. So for the final question, just going to come back to pay and ask point blank, do you support the Royal College of Nursing's Fair Pay for Nursing campaign calling for a 12.5% pay rise for nursing staff?
That's a really good question to finish with. So I'd like Carolyn to answer that to begin with, please.
Okay, well, I will need to go back to what we said earlier and respect the independent pay authorities, that negotiate pay between the employers and the workers, with the unions as well. It's, really important that is what we do with the public pay sector. And we need to make sure that it is funded as well, again, by the UK government, so that we're not having to cut nursing staff to pay for nursing staff, etc., etc. It needs to be funded, you know, right with the government that's got the main purse strings, and so and then whatever is negotiated, then Welsh Labour, you know, I've said that they will look at that and you know, hopefully implement it. So, but I mean, if it was me personally, yes, but there we go. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. And Gareth, can we have your response, please?
Thank you, Sandra. I wasn't sure if I was off mute then. Yes, I mean, going back to what I mentioned before, you know, NHS pay is a completely devolved issue to the Welsh Labour government, who've had control of the purse strings since devolution in 1999. I can see Carolyn shaking her head there, but it's very true. It's very true. So, you know, a Welsh Conservative government in the future will look to implement the full recommendations of the NHS pay review body as an absolute minimum, along with a minimum salary of £10 per hour for care staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gareth. And over to you now, Jack, please, for your response to the final question.
Yes, I fully support the campaign for fair pay for fair work, 12.5%. I happily signed the petition when it came out a couple of months ago, because I know a lot of nurses who have struggled over the past year. We would struggle to implement that with the Plaid Cymru government, having inherited what we would inherit, but I would campaign to have that in the Senedd and to work towards that. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Gareth. So we're doing well with our timings so far. So we now have an opportunity to see a short video animation, and it's entitled Safe and Effective Care. So let the cameras roll. Thank you for that. Now then, just before we come to our close, I would like to ask the candidates to give their closing remarks. I'm just going to say it in Welsh as well. Diolch yn fawr iawn i'r ymgeiswyr, a hoffwn ni ofyn nhw i gyd rhoi eu sylwebau cloi. Ac I gychwyn, I'm just going because you're on my screen. Can we start with Gareth, please? You all have 1 minute to give your closing remarks. Diolch.
I'll make it brief. You know, I've really enjoyed this evening and meeting everybody and taking questions. Myself and the Welsh Conservatives are committed to seeing better hospitals, decreasing the waiting times which have accumulated for 12 years, ultimately 13 years, as waiting times haven't been met, the target since 2008. We've got 1 in 5 people waiting on waiting lists. So we need to recruit more doctors, more nurses into the NHS to deal with the backlog post-COVID-19 and to move away from the pandemic with a better all-around package for nurses where they can prosper in their careers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gareth. And next, Jack, please, may we have your closing remarks?
Yes. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you for having me, and thank you to all of your members for your questions and also for your service over the past year. I think I would just finish by saying, obviously, I've listened to my colleagues' comments this evening, and part of the reason I got involved with politics is I want to see change. I live in North Wales, I live in Flintshire, and things just feel stagnant. And I think we need change. We can see Welsh Labour's record from the last 20 years. We can see the Conservatives in Westminster, their record in England. And I think the NHS needs change, nursing needs change. And I think a vote for Plaid Cymru will deliver that change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jack. And Carolyn, please, may we have your closing remarks?
So again, thank you for having me. Thank you to the RCN for all that you do, and also to our nursing staff. So Labour were there at the beginning, very keen to make sure that the NHS will remain free at point of use, committed to an new education training centre here in North Wales, to recruiting 12,000 new nursing, medical staff, psychiatrists. We are committed to mental health care with our mental health minister, and we're committed to carrying on with the bursary deal as well. So we are moving forward. We are the party of change. We change all the time. We listen, and we're committed to work with people. And we're committed to work with the NHS. And just goes to show as well what devolution has what difference it makes. Here in Wales, we have the bursary. It's no longer there in England, and the way that health is delivered is very different, makes a big difference. So working with the unions is really important with the RCN. So thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, all three of you, for your closing remarks and participating tonight. And I'd also like to thank our virtual audience a'r gynulleidfa mewn ymuno ni mewn Hustings, Gogledd Cymru 2021, llwyddiannus a difyr iawn. I think it's been a very interesting and successful Hustings tonight. So thank you all to the virtual audience. I'd just like to say as well, on the 22nd of April, we as RCN North Wales will be hosting a national Hustings event with the party health spokespeople. I would like to encourage everyone to follow RCN Wales Facebook and Twitter page for more news on Votes for Nursing, which is our 2021 manifesto and our Hustings events. And there's the book for reference. And like I said, thank you everybody for your time and your input, and thank you again to the virtual audience. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Nos da.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gareth, Jack and Carolyn. Good night.
Night.